All right, I'm going to run through a rather quick presentation. It's 15 minutes. Oh, wait a minute. I've only got 13 left. Who did that?
I'll give you an extra minute.
We'll negotiate. All right. I'm going to talk about conglomerates in the Pilbara. A lot of you guys know the story. I'm going to save you a lot of details and kind of cut to the most important parts of this story. Cautionary statement is available on our website. We have about 162 million shares out, Canadian traded, roughly 61 million in cash at the moment. Our largest shareholder is Kirkland Lake. I can take this opportunity to say that having looked at Fosterville back around May of 2016, I felt quite compelled it was high grade. I can assure you there's a lot more geologically. You don't create a one-off like that. A lot of the untested extent of a lot of the down plunge portions of the various deposits there, I think, has equally strong potential to host high grade. We're focused on conglomerates in the Pilbara. Why have we looked at the Pilbara? Well, the geology of the Pilbara is very similar to the geology of the Capval Craton in South Africa. That's the host to the Witwatersrand goldfield. The Wits Basin has produced roughly 30% of all the world's gold throughout history. The conglomerates we see in the Pilbara display strong lateral continuity, much like their South African counterparts, but they also have some key differences. The conglomerates that we see are often cobbly or bouldery. In other words, they're much more coarse grain, higher energy conglomerates. And the gold is also coarse grain. That poses a challenge that we have to live with. Nonetheless, the Fortescue Basin, I believe, has very strong potential to host what we'll call a world-class gold district. Okay, what I'm going to do is take you through a video tour of 3 properties that we have. Can you please fire that up? Okay, we're going to talk about Beaton's Creek first. This is where we started our work in 2010. Beaton's Creek is near Nullagine, a small town north of Newman, easily accessed. We're well integrated into the town. We have a 12-man camp right next to the pub. Bit of a danger, but, you know. Nullagine was discovered. The gold district was discovered roughly the same time as the Wits Goldfield in 1886. Was mined intermittently by prospectors who were mainly focused on the alluvial gold that was being derived from the weathering conglomerates. As we zoom in, you'll see an image of the Fortescue Basin. We're actually flying towards the basin itself. The basin are sedimentary rocks that have been deposited in an older basement. You can see the historical alluvial workings the old-timers worked. Over time, these old-timers gradually chased the deposits, this gold, uphill into those bedded rocks. The bedded rocks are almost flat. You can see the layering. They're very, very flat in this area. Nonetheless, they shed a lot of gold. They produced all the alluvial workings that you see in the foreground. And as we zoom around, you'll see the old-timers actually picked at the outcrop. This is the conglomerate outcrop in the hills in the area, once they figured out where the gold was coming from. Cross-section I'm going to show you is basically a profile of the deposit. It's a stack of layers, each layer about 1 to 2 meters thick. There's about 6 or 7 mineable layers here at shallow depth. We see this as a big open pit potential. The old-timers even scraped the hills. You can see there's no soil in places. That's because they actually scraped and mined the soil that was being derived from the conglomerates. So we pass over South Hill. We're going to go into the guts of the property. This is Golden Crown Hill. These deposits were laid down along a coast where you introduced sediment from a river system into a basin where the sea was reworking it to create stratified gold-bearing conglomerates. Okay, as we continue our trek here, we're going to look at a place we trial mined a few years ago. This is oxidized material. We trial mined the bench in front of us. That's us free digging the oxide ore. We stripped it and excavated the ore without drilling and blasting. In doing so, we proved the grades were roughly twice what was predicted by RC drilling. In other words, the nugget effect was at play. But we were able to mine this thing very, very selectively. The color, the texture helped. Here you see a profile of a conglomerate bed about 1.1 meters thick. We are very confident we can go in like a laser surgeon and mine these things selectively. That's a model of the resource that we have at present. You can see it's wide open to the left. We're currently looking at expanding that resource. There will be an announcement sometime in the not-too-distant future talking about an incremental increase, but we believe that we can increase it dramatically by testing further down into the basin. As we swing around here, you'll see that all those bedded rocks continue southward into the greater Fortescue Basin. All right, so the system is basically open due south from where we're at. We think this could be a much larger gold system, and we're looking at clever ways to grow the resource right now. We're actually doing a bit of diamond drilling, often see visible gold like you see there. Next project I'm going to talk about is Kararthur. Kararthur was a discovery for us in 2017. Here we are at Purdy's Reward. We're going to look at what we're doing there right now. So Purdy's Reward is where we started work in 2017. Here's the stratigraphy. Basically, we're looking down dip. The conglomerate's at the bottom of the sequence. Trench 1 is the one we opened up for the gold forum last year. You can see the pink dots where we identify gold nuggets in situ. That's the nugget that we recovered right at the end of the video last year. As we step over from Purdy's Reward into Comet Well, we continued exploration into 2018 at Comet Well. We got smart. We started taking bigger samples. We also opened up things differently. We opened them laterally so we could see what was going on rather than digging slot trenches. And we started finding lots of gold in situ. Here at Drum Gully, we've recently identified a connection between Comet Well and Purdy's Reward, so we see continuity now along these conglomerates for nearly 4 kilometers. The gold, as the prospectors found it in the soil, looks like this, melon seed-shaped nuggets. But in situ, it looks like this. The nuggets are embedded in rock matrix, and there's a fine halo of very fine disseminated gold around the nuggets. Other than that, there is no disseminated fine-grained gold within this system. As we fly along strike, you'll see that the beds dip to the left. Basically, that corridor where the river valley is, we perceive as a potential open pit setting for a mine for these types of conglomerates. We're going to look at a cross-section now that cuts through the Comet Well area, and we have 2 identified gold-bearing horizons. One's at the top there, right at the contact between the green and the yellow. The second is right at the bottom of the yellow. So we have 2 distinct units. We're evaluating the geology through diamond drilling. Diamond drilling, because it is nuggeting, it doesn't give us grade, but it does give us good geology. And we're starting to get creative and use things like core scanning to better evaluate the stratigraphy and develop continuity. One of the big efforts we have right now is bulk sampling. You can see a sample site here. That's where we're getting these 5 to 10 ton samples. We're taking from the lower conglomerate, as you see here, as well as the upper horizon that I showed you in the cross section. All right, we're also looking at this as a bulk extraction effort. It's kind of like a diamond deposit. All right, so we need to take large tonnages to truly evaluate the grade and extent of these things. What we're going to do now is we're going to swing around and look down the valley. You can see how much runway we have. The Kuya Puya, which is the dark black rock in the distance, is basically the limit to what we perceive as open pittable potential here. But it gives us a pretty wide corridor, especially when you start looking clear back to the Purdy's Reward property as we swing around. All right, so we've identified numerous places along strike where we see potential bulk extraction sites. This is our goal for next year, is to get to the point where we can go in and bulk mine this thing. Egina is a new property for us. We identified it about a year ago as highly prospective. We put some land together recently through a purchase of Farno McMahon and a joint venture with Pioneer Resources. Here we are flying around Egina. We're actually looking at Fortescue age rocks that are sitting unconformably on top of the Malina Basin, on top of that hill. What really caught our attention, prospector scratches everywhere. The gold nuggets at Egina show a distinct similarity to those that we find at Comet Well. All right, so that Fortescue Basin, the same one that we were at Comet Well, is 120 kilometers here. Think about that for a minute. All right, we're seeing the same geology, same conglomerate, same type of gold, 120 kilometers away. When Eric said 660 kilometers, it's actually demonstrable that we have many occurrences of this type of gold over the entire width of the Pilbara. Egina Mining Center is not up in the conglomerates. It's actually down in the flats, and this caught our attention early on. Farno McMahon has been mining these trenches that you see in the foreground For several years now, they open up trenches just willy-nilly, kind of cowboy style, but they find considerable coarse-grained gold. We believe this gold has weathered out of the Fortescue conglomerates and been redistributed on the flats, the horizon, or the flat horizon in the foreground. The gold that we see is not only coarse, but we've seen fine-grained gold in these sediments as well. So basically that terrace that you see there, that large flat plain, is a site of modern deposition of the gold that's been eroded out of the Fortescue. So in its own right, we see as a very, very highly prospective target, and it can really a continuation or an extension of the conglomerate story. This video is meant to give you a sense of perspective on the scale of systems that we're dealing with here. They're very large, they're very sheet-like systems, both the ones in the Fortescue Basin as well as the modern system that we have here. Prospector scrapes are everywhere across this area, and we find nuggets occasionally that are in rock matrix that look very much like Comet Well. We also find pieces of conglomerate that look very much like that we see at Comet Well. So, in short, we feel that we're onto yet another important part of the gold story in the Pilbara. Here you can see gold in the matrix of the conglomerate. So to give you a perspective, we're now looking out at the Fortescue Basin, those flat rocks off in the distance that carry on for hundreds of square kilometers, have been eroding away slowly over time and distributing their gold in the flat surface surrounding the Egina area. So once again, we see these as both very, very viable targets that in their own right could be significant gold systems. I hope this gives you a sense of the scale of the systems and the potential that we have. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about geology and what we're doing at site. If you guys could move on to the slides. Okay, this is the gold we see from the various properties I just showed you. At Beaton's Creek, the flakes are about 3 millimeter in size. Comet Well, they're often 5 to 10 millimeters in size. At Egina, they're even larger. These are coarse gold systems. So, like I said, this is very much like a diamond deposit. We've been treating our samples at SGS Lab in Perth. It's been quite a frustrating exercise at many levels. The rain here in Perth, as you know, has been very, very problematic this year. We're doing this work outside. About as soon as they get started, they have to shut everything down. Nonetheless, they've been able to crush quite a few samples and generate the nugget concentrate out of these. So we have at least a preview at the moment of what to expect. And you can see the samples here. These are concentrates from the lower gold-bearing conglomerate there at Comet Well. Considerable gold. Most of these nuggets are in the order of 0.x to 1.x gram in size. And then we have nuggets from the upper horizon. These tend to be larger, usually multi-gram nuggets. And they tend to be fewer in number. Okay, so think about this for a minute. A 5-ton sample is generating anywhere from 2 to 5 nuggets, say, in a concentrate. Okay, that's the kind of challenge we face, but we are meeting the challenge. It also tells us, though, that we have to do large-scale bulk sampling. Right, so our strategy is to prepare this, gather this data, use it to support a mineralization report, convert to a mining license, and be able to bulk mine this thing next year. Our current diamond drilling program, as well as our bulk sampling program, is designed to give us the valuable data that we need to move the project forward. We're implementing core scanning right now to demonstrate continuity of the conglomerates. It's proving very effective at the moment. We've also started working with Tomra. Tomra is an ore sorting company. We started with Steinert last year. We produce concentrate like this. You can see rock fragments here in this concentrate bucket. What we learned through this exercise is that you got to crush the rock down to an optimal size. In this case, roughly 6 centimeter diameter. That way the machine can effectively pick the nuggets, the rock particles with nuggets, and winnow those out from the rest. In this case, we produced a 2% mass pull. We see ore sorting as a very, very important means to treat this material once the day comes, even for a trial mine. So we're processing samples like this right now with Tomra, and we expect to be able to talk about that effectiveness by late this year. I'm going to end with 2 slides around Egina to give you a little bit bigger picture about the story there. Here in this photograph, you can see the Fortescue age rock sitting on top of Malana Basin. We know those conglomerates have gold. We actually see gold in the matrix. Down on the flats, we see gold nuggets, very much like those we see at Comet Well. This is a very exciting story. So not only do we have the conglomerates themselves, but we have this terrace, this flat country to explore. And our plan is to add Egina as a key part of our exploration program going forward. Here you see the trenches that Farnham McMahon has dug. We watched these guys for about 6 months and became compelled that this would be a significant gold deposit in its own right. Here's the gravel horizons in the upper right, and this is the gold they're producing. Again, coarse gold, but it also has a fine-grained gold component. The real advantage here, two things. One, this is a granted mining lease. Second, this is free dig. This is something we can tackle on a much faster pace than we have at Comet Well. It's equally important. We don't want to diminish anything we're doing elsewhere in the Pilbara. This is simply a new, exciting project for us.